Sabonis has played 39 minutes or more in like the last 4 games or whatever. And I think, or whatever it is, I don't know. Let me pull that up. But he's been playing basically 40 minutes a lot over the last 4 or 5 games. And I think we all know where this conversation is going. The Kings have been searching for an answer at the backup 5, and they just have not gotten a consistent solution. And we all know Richaun Holmes, starter for a few years here in Sacramento, lost the starting job. There's a lot of hope that the Kings could have him step in to being the backup to Sabonis. I mean, how great would that be? 2 starter level centers, one after the other, with Holmes providing great energy and, with the rest of the second unit. I mean, it's a match made in heaven. But it's just not panned out. And he, as Mike Brown said after the Charlotte game, he had a pretty long leash. I mean, he was the backup center for 8 games, and he was pretty miserable in all 8 of those games. And then Chimezie Metu stepped in. He was pretty good for almost a month, it felt like. He was pretty good for a while, for the majority of the time. Pretty adequate, mixed in perfectly with the second unit, running the floor, getting those lobs. But it just seemed like, especially on this road trip against some of these more imposing teams, where his size mismatch was there, but it was also just like you could see Metu he was not as sharp, and also he played with, kind of outside of himself. I think it was that Toronto game where he took like 3 field goal attempts that were all pretty lousy, and I think the last 2 in particular were just a little forced, and it's just like, dude, you are the last option out there. Like you're scoring. Okay, if you get a wide open 3, your coach probably wants you to shoot that. He passed that up and made like a way more difficult shot out of it. So it's just like, that is the last thing you want to be doing, dude. Like, if it's not a wide open 3 or a lob or something, or a wide open dunk that you earn, then get out of here. So it's kind of just a bad, mix of, a bad recipe for Metu over the last couple of games. And Mike Brown's been forced to go to Queta. And like, in relation to Metu's last few games, it's like Queta's been, you could almost argue that he's been marginally better, but it's like, we're looking for a consistent solution here. Queta could be that at the beginning of next season or the season after. I don't dispute that at all. I also don't think that, if the Kings were playing poorly this year, that it would be a terrible idea to let him develop in the league. But it's like, you need to be winning games. And this backup center thing is kind of a big deal. I don't think you can wait around for this guy to kind of mature. And I don't think that Mike Brown is at all infatuated with shot blocking. So it's all about your inside presence, your ability to play with the guys as a cohesive unit. That takes some time. And he's been able to practice with the team through training camp as a 2-way player contract. But excuse me and a bunch of other people if they don't believe that he's going to be a legitimate answer there. I feel like you almost have a better bet of just waiting on Holmes to figure it out. I don't know. Maybe that's cynical, but you just don't have an option right there. And like I said, Sabonis is playing a lot of extra minutes, and he's great and he's doing fine. And it's December right now, but it takes a wear and tear. And, Mike Brown said, as anybody who could guess, that he would think that you just can't get away with playing Sabonis 40 minutes a night. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not sustainable. So this is a big issue. I mean, do you have any thoughts just on what the Kings have? We'll talk about outside options in a second, but just thinking about the situation now, I mean, do you think it's a matchups based thing could be a good idea, or just kind of revolving to different guys as it seems to be the case? He's kind of sticking with Queta maybe for now. I don't know.
I mean, before I start talking about it, I just remember at the beginning of the season, or before the season started, we rated each positional group, and the center was the best because we thought they had the most depth. And I mean,
it appeared they did.
And Len's been out too, and so I think Queta's only up because Len's out. Because you don't put Queta in there over Len, in my opinion. Queta is so raw still, and he's out there. And he kind of looks lost. And he fouls a ton. It's like he picks up a lot of quick fouls. So I think he's only in there at the moment because Len's out. I think Len would be getting those minutes over Queta. And yeah, I was gonna call him Mamba, Mezzi Mamba, because your boy.
He has those moments. He just hasn't had them this season at all.
I know, right? He's looked bad over the last several games. He started off good, and I understand why he took that backup center spot over Richaun, but he has not looked good recently either. Richaun, is it just time to give him his chance again? I'm still confused why he doesn't fit too well. I guess his defense. I don't know. It's just he looks. I mean, I know he looks lost out there, and he's been awful. But I'm just kind of surprised he hasn't bought into Brown's system. He was our starting center for 2.5 years, and now he's just literally a non-factor now. It's so weird. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But it's
just on Holmes for a second. It's just like,
yeah,
you pointed it out at the beginning of the season that he doesn't look all the way engaged out on the floor. And you could almost see that it was a night and day difference when Metu went out there. I mean, he took advantage of his opportunity with enthusiasm. Whereas Holmes was kind of almost just like, wasn't even like considering that he was either interested in playing or that maybe he'd get replaced. I don't know. There seemed to be kind of a motivational thing that was down that you pointed out, and I agree with. But when you see him play, even now, like a couple months in the season after all this practicing and being in the system so long, you see, Sabonis has turned into this defensive, like everybody's talking about his defense. Thank God. Because he's a smart defender, and Mike Brown coached him up to be a great rim defender, to use fundamentals and verticality, staying straight up, those kinds of things. He's got smaller players, guarding the restricted area. And even see Metu have good fundamentals sometimes, not as good as Sabonis, not nearly as good, but you see him kind of, at least you can see him learning and having learned and trying to execute. But you just don't see that with Holmes. When he plays defense, he's down, he's backpedaling, he's hesitant on contesting shots, and he doesn't really know what he's doing, and he's getting into bad position, and he's trying to guard with his hands a lot, and he got a couple fouls, I think, in that Toronto game. It's almost just like that's not his style of defense or something, because he's just not applying any of the lessons that you see just ubiquitously used by the rest of the team. You don't see any of it in Holmes. The only time you see Holmes doing something good is he puts down a push shot or a pick and roll works out for him. It's the only time. But yeah, I kind of interrupted you there.
No, I it was more of a question. I'm just surprised he's been just that bad. He was a starting center and now he's nothing. Like Sabonis learned, right? He wasn't that great of a defender. Now he's pretty decent, right? And Holmes, what is he like? Just trying not to learn? Mike Brown gave him the opportunities, and he was given the backup centers opportunities at the beginning of the season, and he's probably given the chance in practice to try to prove himself. But is he just like refusing to learn?
I have no idea. I guess that is just the piece of mystery there.
Yeah,
I mean, he was asked. Mike Brown was asked, like, why hasn't I think it was worded as, why hasn't Holmes been given a longer leash? And it's like Mike Brown pointed out, it's like, well, he did have a long leash. He played terribly, as we pointed out. He didn't quite say that, but it seems like there wasn't any clear indication in Mike Brown's answer. It just seems like it's just not earning time. So I don't know. But again, you mentioned Len, and that was the one guy I neglect. I constantly neglect Len. And that's not because, I don't consider he's there. I don't consider him an option. But again, Len's another one of those guys where it's like, he's not the answer to that. He's just he doesn't have the mobility for it. I think he's such a mismatch nightmare to just get him switched on to somebody smaller, and then that's it. I mean, you've seen it, I think, in limited time from Len, and it's just he's more like you want him to go out there and battle with bigger teams. He probably would have been helpful. It was kind of unfortunate he got sick on the second half of that East Coast trip because he probably could have been helpful in that situation. So it'll be interesting. But I mean, like, I don't know. He's definitely not a nightly guy, I think. So that's why I almost think, not to bounce around too much here, but just the general idea of the backup center. That's why I almost think like kind of platoon it almost. Because if Metu's problem is like kind of size, I mean, if he can kind of hone in back to playing the right way, he could be good in higher pace situations against a team like the Warriors or something like that, or other Western Conference teams. And then Len against Philadelphia, or even against Charlotte last night when Nick Richards was just getting on the glass. It's like that'd be interesting to at least be able to throw him out there. So maybe as a platoon, the option. I mean, I don't know.
I think, and that's your only option at this point, right? You have to platoon it. It has to be a matchup based system. You put Len or Queta against the bigger guys. You put Metu against the smaller ball lineups. And if you even want to try to throw Holmes in there, there's probably, options or situations where Holmes can play the floor. Maybe. I don't know. But, I mean, I think, and I don't have too much more to say on this, except that it seems like the Kings are going to have to make a move for a backup center because, like you said, Sabonis can't be playing 40 minutes a night, and the backup centers are just so bad right now behind them, and it really kills the Kings bench, and their defense is subpar, their offense is subpar. They also kind of like look lost out there, and Sabonis needs a solid backup center behind him. That at least not just Sabonis, the Kings need someone for like a placeholder while he gets his 15, 20 minutes of rest a night. Not even 20, like 15, right? I don't know what he's averaging a game, but probably around there, maybe 18. But
yeah, Mike Brown said 6 to 8 minutes a half.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 16-ish minutes. So I don't know. Do you have anything more to say on
Well, I would
platoon?
just kind of like the half-hearted appeal for Holmes, which is the only appeal for Richaun Holmes at this point. One of the things that you could say is like, well, first of all, searching for answers, I guess it can't really hurt. But another thing, I mean, if you're looking at a situation where Holmes doesn't have a place in this team, maybe it'd be a way to shop him or like advertise him. I don't know. I mean, maybe you don't want to do that because you don't want to hurt his stock anymore, but I don't know.